The moment Joanne's wedding veil fluttered in the sea breeze, I threw myself into the ocean, willingly, finally, ready to be erased. The impact with the water stole my breath before grief could. It was cold, cruelly cold, the kind that doesn't numb your skin but burns it. I welcomed the sensation. Somewhere above, applause erupted, laughter, champagne corks. The woman I had once bled for was kissing Richard beneath a golden arch wrapped in ocean lilies, and the system in my mind, always clinical, always cruel, spoke without emotion. Final target failed, 13 days until host termination. I didn't resist the sinking. My arms floated outward, surrendering. I wanted to scream, but I had no more air, no more words, no more point. They had all chosen him, again. Joanne, the girl whose spine had been shattered in that crash. I gave up every system point I had earned to help her walk again. The moment she stood without crutches, she turned toward Richard and left me behind. Teresa, my sister in this world. I'd taken the full force of a car to save her. Her tears back then were real, so were her promises. But when Richard moved into our house, uninvited, smiling, she gave him my room, my dog, and her heart. Maria, who once called me her savior. I'd sold off my last patent to save her from a forced marriage, but one look at Richard's stage tears, and she too believed I was a monster. And Teresa, my best friend, the one I protected when her father used to beat her bloody. I went blind shielding her once. Yet she framed me with photographs, her voice full of venom when she accused me of ruining Richard's life. The affection meters had once blinked so close to success, 93%, 97%, 99%. I tried not to get hopeful, but the system always chimed with cruel optimism, affection level rising, only for it to drop instantly the moment Richard entered their hearts. I was never supposed to be it, in this world. I came here because I was dying in another. The system said, conquer 4 hearts and you'll live. But love is rigged in a world where the villain wears a halo and the hero is painted in shadows. Now I was just tired. So tired. My eyes began to close, vision fading into the blue, when a sudden splash erupted overhead, then another, and another. Arms pulled at me, frantic, desperate, a scream, several. Joseph! Grab him! Don't let him go! They were the same voices that once called me a parasite, a liar, a monster. And yet now, something in their screams sounded real. Why? Why now, when everything was already over? When I first opened my eyes in this world, I wasn't in a hospital bed or a sterile room. I was lying in the dirt, blood dripping down my ribs, surrounded by strangers. A mechanical voice in my head had whispered, "Welcome, host, your body has been calibrated. Mission, conquer 4 targets. Reward, your life. Penalty, erasure." I didn't believe it at first. I thought it was a dream, a hallucination brought on by too much morphine. In my real world, my bones were thinning from cancer, my days were numbered, and the people I loved were saying their final goodbyes. So maybe this bizarre alternate reality with shining towers and cold stares, was my last delusion before death. But then the system spoke again. Target 1, Teresa, role, sister, current affection, 12%. The pain in my body felt too real for a dream. Teresa was crying when I saw her, holding my broken body after a car had slammed into us both. I'd shoved her out of the way and taken the full brunt of it. The crash ruptured half the organs in my new body, but I didn't care. She was safe. She was my little sister now. "You're stupid," she sobbed, clinging to my ruined body. "You always do this. You always protect me like you're the older one. But I swear, Joseph, I'll never let anything happen to you again." She meant it. In that moment, her affection meter jumped from 12% to 48%. She made me tea when I couldn't lift my arms, snuck snacks into the ICU, argued with nurses when they hurt me during treatment. For a time, it felt like I might succeed. But then Richard arrived. He was polite, helpful. He said he was just passing through. Teresa smiled at him too much. And then one day, I came home from a system trial, limping and barely breathing, and found Richard sleeping in my bed and my dog's corpse in the trash. When I looked at her, she said flatly, "It's just a dog, Joseph. Don't be so petty." Affection drop. Dim 48%, 35%, 17%, then 0. Teresa said she didn't want to call me her brother anymore. She wanted a real brother, one like Richard. That's when the system assigned me my second target, Target 2, Joanne. Role, fiancé. Current affection, 3%. I hadn't even met her yet. Joanne Liu was the abandoned heiress of the most powerful family in the country. After a car accident shattered her spine, she was left paralyzed and politically useless. Her father arranged a contract marriage. I was to be her public husband in exchange for protection. That's all it was. But she hated me. "Don't think this marriage means anything," she said, wheeling past me the first day. "I'll walk again without your pity." But it wasn't pity. The system offered a path: use all stored points to repair Joanne's spinal damage. Progress, 0%, 100%. So I took the deal. Every night, I suffered quietly while the system tore my bones apart and injected her body with restored nerves and connections. It took 64 nights. On the 65th, she stood. She wept as she touched the floor barefoot, hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. She kissed me. And for the first time, I thought maybe she'd stay. Her affection reached 91%. And then came Richard. One visit, one walk in the garden, one tender smile. By the next morning, she had cancelled the engagement. "I'm sorry," she said. "Richard understands me, you never did." Affection, 0%. Target 3, Teresa. Role, best friend. Current affection, 26%. The second. Teresa was a childhood friend, my light in this otherwise artificial world. She had lost her mother young, raised by a father who cycled through mistresses and pain like it was currency. I found her crying in a stairwell one night, bruises on her arm. She never liked to be touched, but she let me hold her hand. Over the years, we built something unspoken. When she couldn't walk home, I carried her. When she went blind from a concussion, I read to her. I bought her a camera so she could capture the world she couldn't always face. She loved that camera. On the strap, I had engraved, Teresa Joseph. She always said she wanted to take my photo at our graduation, so I never told her I was dying. I never told her I wouldn't make it that far. But then Richard entered the photography contest. He plagiarized her work. I exposed him, and the fallout was brutal. Teresa believed him. "You couldn't handle losing," she hissed, throwing photo prints in my face. "You humiliated him in front of everyone." Then came the pictures. Me, tied up, bloodied, half-naked, degraded. She staged them, framed me, spread them. My face, my pain, her camera. Affection, 0%. The fourth target was Maria. I once found her on the roof, ready to jump. Her family had promised her to a man twice her age in exchange for a corporate alliance. She was 17. I didn't know what to say, so I simply sat beside her and said, "If you go now, you'll never see what else could have happened." We spent 3 nights there, side by side, silent, breathing. I used every last cent I had to buy out her contract and give her freedom. She promised she would come back to me. She didn't. Richard was hit by her car weeks later. She took care of him in the hospital. One smile, one sob story, and suddenly I was the villain again. Now she sends people after me, men, women, trying to break me, infect me, ruin me. 4 hearts, 4 betrayals. And now, 0 days of hope left. Current status, final target failed. Time remaining, 13 days until system erasure. I stared at the mirror in the guest cabin of the ship. The sea whispered behind me, beckoning. I didn't cry, I didn't beg. I just opened the door and walked toward the edge. My first breath after hitting the ocean wasn't salvation, it was a mistake. I wanted that water to keep me, drag me down to the void where the system couldn't reach, but instead, I awoke to the sting of a palm across my face and the roar of angry voices around me. "You really have no shame," Joanne spat, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my collar as she yanked me forward, her wedding veil clinging to her like it hadn't just fluttered in the wind while she kissed another man. Her other hand curled into a fist. "Are you seriously trying to ruin my wedding day?" My lips parted, too stunned to answer, but she didn't wait. "Maybe I should throw you back in myself." Cheers echoed behind her, laughs, gasps, clinks of champagne. The entire yacht's attention had turned to the soaked, trembling figure at her feet. Me. Behind her, Richard stood with an innocent frown, gently adjusting his cufflinks. Of course, he looked like the hero here. And then another slap came. This time, it was sharper, louder. Teresa, my best friend, my shadow from childhood, the girl whose camera I gifted after shielding her from the men her father brought home, the girl who had cried in my arms once, now smirking as she dropped a thick envelope at my feet. The photos spilled out. I stared in silence, my own face, my own body, bound, stripped, humiliated, scars visible, the word trash carved into my chest in one of them. My knees buckled slightly, not from pain but from the sheer magnitude of betrayal. These were taken by me, Teresa declared, so don't even think of denying it. You're sick, Joseph. You were always jealous of Richard, always trying to tear him down, so you created lies, sabotaged him, and now you come here and pull this suicide stunt like it'll win you sympathy. Joanne's eyes narrowed, but her lips pressed into a smirk. You think you can just drown in front of everyone, and I'll feel guilty? She grabbed my collar again and shoved me against the railing, the edge biting into my back. Do it again then, jump, let's see if you really meant it. The sea below shimmered, mocking me. Somewhere deep in the system's code, my failure was already being tallied. But I said nothing, I didn't flinch, I didn't resist. Joanne froze. What's wrong with you? She whispered. Why aren't you fighting back? Why aren't you defending yourself? Because what was the point? I had explained everything before, the cheating, the lies, the sabotage. Every single time I told the truth, and every single time they called it manipulation, called it petty jealousy, and every time they stood closer to him. Speak, Joanne said again, her hands trembling now. You can't seriously want to die over this. I've already lost everything, I said, voice quiet. Might as well lose the rest. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Your life is mine, she hissed, her voice cracking. I'm the one who told you not to die, remember? You promised me. She was shaking, not with rage, but something else, something softer. I remembered the night she told me that, when she was still in a wheelchair, when she had found out I had taken the Liu family's punishment in her place. My ribs had been broken, I'd bled through my clothes, but she had held me then, her fingers brushing through my hair. If you die, she whispered that night, I'll follow you. Now, she stood here, engaged to someone else, her hand still gripping my collar like I belonged to her. But before I could respond, Maria arrived. The click of her heels echoed louder than her words. You're disgusting, Joseph, she snapped, raising her phone. One by one, she showed the guests images of Richard, battered, half-naked, tied to a chair. The captions read, staged by Joseph. Violence at the photography competition. Psychological abuse. You think we didn't notice your little games? Maria continued, eyes blazing. You tried to ruin Richard's future, you tried to humiliate him at the competition, you tried to destroy his reputation, and now you want to make us feel sorry for you? Joanne's expression twisted again, fury reawakening. If you don't get off this yacht in the next 5 minutes, she growled, I'll make sure everything Richard suffered, you suffer twice over. My silence didn't help. It never did. Bodyguards arrived. They dragged me across the deck like I was some gate-crashing beggar, ignoring the dried blood on my wrist and the bruises already forming. But just as I neared the steps to exit, Teresa stepped forward again. No, wait, she said coldly. She dropped another envelope, this one thinner. I knew the paper inside by feel alone. You know what this is? She whispered near my ear. The consent forms you signed before we began the system mission. The ones that say you'd be erased in case of failure. I looked up at her. Why are you doing this? Because Richard is missing. That caught me off guard. For the first time, everyone quieted. He disappeared 2 nights ago, Maria added. Vanished, no contact. And you're the only one twisted enough to do something about it, Teresa said. They thought I kidnapped him. They thought I hurt him. Joanne leaned closer, venom in her gaze. Where is he, Joseph? I tilted my head, my lips curling slightly. If this was the last time they'd look at me, I wanted it burned into their memory. I killed him, I said flatly. Gasps all around. I fed him to the sea, I continued. Since you all love him so much, maybe the ocean will too. Joanne eyed back. Teresa stepped away. Maria clutched her mouth. Then came the slap again, followed by silence. But for the first time, their fear wasn't theatrical. This time, it was real. The villa they dragged me to was one I had once built with my system points, brick by painful brick, so Teresa would have somewhere quiet to escape the storms of her life. Now, that sanctuary had become my execution chamber. Teresa slammed the door shut as soon as we entered. Joanne followed, her heels clicking like gunshots against marble. Maria trailed behind them, silent but tense. And the bodyguards? They didn't wait for instructions. They shoved me to the ground, knee pressed into my spine, arms pinned behind me. "You're going to tell us what you did to Richard," Teresa snapped, "or we'll rip it out of you." I didn't speak. I didn't even lift my head. Joanne stormed past, grabbed a bottle from the shelf, alcohol, the kind used to sterilize, and poured it slowly across the bruises on my arms. The sting was immediate, white-hot, searing. Still, I didn't flinch. "You used to beg me to hold your hand when they hurt you," I murmured. Her hand froze in mid-air. "You cried when your father dragged you through the hallway by your hair, and I held you while you trembled under a desk." Her face twisted. Don't twist the past." "You're the one twisting it now," I whispered. But then Teresa returned, holding something in metal tongs. I saw the glint before I felt the heat. "Don't close your eyes," she warned. She pressed the hot iron closer, hovering just beside my left eye. The air hissed with the heat. "Tell us where Richard is," she said. I remembered when she was 9, when she had stumbled into my room after another of her father's episodes. Her wrist had been bruised, eyes red, and she buried herself into my chest and whispered, "You're the only one I have, promise you won't leave." Now her voice was sharp, mechanical, detached. "Say it," Joanne said. "Where did you bury him?" I remained silent. Teresa turned, enraged. "Joanne, the iron." Joanne hesitated. A flicker of something, memory maybe, passed through her expression. I remembered her crying into my lap after I took the Liu family's lashings in her place. I couldn't move for days, and she didn't leave my side once. "I told you not to die without my permission," she had whispered, her fingers stroking my blood-matted hair. Now she stared down at me with hollow eyes. "I never imagined you'd become this person." I let out a short, dry laugh. Neither did I. Then came the burn. The iron pressed into the side of my torso first, blistering skin instantly. I arched in pain, but not from the injury, from the memory, the betrayal, the silence in their eyes where love used to live. I wanted to die. I welcomed it. But the system whispered, "Host termination not permitted until all missions fail." Current status, Mission 4, 0% affection. Failure confirmed. Prepare for erasure in 11 days. Why? Why not just let me go? I didn't fight as they dragged me upstairs and locked me inside a guest room. I didn't stop the bleeding. I didn't scream. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, until sunrise blurred into moonlight again. When the door finally opened, I expected another round of cruelty. Instead, Maria entered, holding a phone. "I just got a message," she said. "Police found Richard's car near the cliffs." She paused, then added coldly, "They think it might have been suicide." My heart didn't even flutter. Of course he'd fake it. Of course he'd twist this too. "Then go mourn him," I said. But instead, Maria pushed me toward the window. "You're the one who made him do this," she screamed, shoving me hard. The rooftop was 3 floors up, no railing, just sky and edge. "Everyone's crying over him," she said, voice trembling. "But all you do is destroy. Why are you even alive?" And then, she pushed. Not hard, just enough. My foot slipped, my body tilted. I didn't scream. I didn't reach for help. Finally. Wind roared past my ears, the rooftop vanished, the world blurred. But then a loud crash, my body hitting something soft. Inflatables, emergency cushions, firemen, sirens. I hadn't called them, but someone had. And standing nearby, untouched, unbothered, was Richard. Holding pastries, laughing. "Oh," he said, blinking innocently. "So much blood. What happened here?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. The world spun. My vision darkened, and as the system's voice echoed faintly again, I whispered to myself, "If dying ends this nightmare, so be it." The system's voice returned to me that night like a whisper in my skull, quiet but undeniable. "Emergency override. host eligible for truth exchange, 500 system points, April 1 video revelation. Confirm? My fingers trembled over the yes command. I didn't hesitate, I confirmed. What else could I do with points now? I wasn't going to use them to heal, not anymore, not after what they did. Upload complete, first file, deliver to target, Teresa. The video link pulsed softly on my screen. I sent it directly to her phone. 3 hours later, my door burst open. No bodyguards this time, no screaming, just her. She walked slowly into the room, her eyes empty and glued to the phone in her hand. She didn't say a word at first, just stood there. The clip I sent her played Richard's voice with brutal clarity. You want fame? Fine, just let me use your story, be the tragic best friend. I'll turn your pain into a campaign. The public loves a survivor story. You'll get your fame, and I'll get sympathy. Easy. Then laughter. His voice again. Joseph? He'll take the blame for everything. He's used to being stepped on. She turned the phone off and finally met my eyes. You recorded this? She asked. I shook my head. The system did. I bought it with what little I had left. You're lying, she snapped, but her voice cracked halfway. Believe it or don't, I murmured, I've stopped caring. Her hands trembled, but she didn't throw the phone, didn't scream. She turned and left in silence. The next day, I made the second trade, 500 points, April 1 video, deliver to Maria. She was lounging by the pool when her phone pinged. I watched through the window as she rolled her eyes and tapped the notification. Then her face drained of color. In the video, her parents sat across from Richard at a restaurant. Their voices low, their expressions smug. She's useless now, her father said. You want her? Teals. Ache her, but don't expect her to stay unbroken. Richard chuckled. Oh, I don't want her, just the leverage she offers. She doesn't know? Her mother asked. She doesn't need to, Richard replied, not until she's already ruined. Maria stood, phone shaking in her hand. She stumbled, then threw the device across the tiles. It shattered into pieces. That night, she didn't come to accuse me, but she didn't defend me either. Then came the third file. Deliver to Joanne Liu. Subject, car accident footage. I was almost afraid to send it. Joanne had always been the hardest to reach. Her pride ran thicker than blood, and her love for Richard, however manipulated, was nearly unshakable. But the footage didn't lie. It showed her family's luxury car at the scene, it showed Richard sitting in the driver's seat, texting, headphones in, distracted, and it showed the crash, Joanne being thrown into the glass, blood, screams, the system overlay confirming it all. Then came the part where Richard handed me the keys afterward, told the police he'd never touched the car, and Joanne, still barely conscious, nodded along. The final frame? Richard kneeling at her hospital bed, whispering, Joseph did this to you. I hit send. Hours passed. Then footsteps. Joanne entered the room with no makeup, her gown wrinkled, hair undone. Her face was pale, like all her certainty had been scraped off with a razor. You knew all along? She asked, eyes glassy. I found out later. But by then, none of you would listen. She looked down. I hated you, she whispered. Every time I took a step, I thought of what you took from me. But it wasn't even you. Her voice broke. But I still hate you, she admitted. I know, I said. She didn't apologize, and she didn't stay. The door closed behind her. Host affection scores. Teresa, 34%. Maria, 18%. Joanne, 41%. It wasn't enough. The points wouldn't save me. And I wasn't going to restart the mission. I was done being someone's emotional puzzle. That night, my chest ached, blood returned to my coughs, my breathing rattled like broken glass in my lungs. I curled up on the rooftop, alone, freezing, waiting. Until the system said something new, something impossible. Alert, parallel emotional frequencies detected. Cross-world link initiated, new targets located, displaying interface. The air shimmered. And suddenly, the rooftop dissolved into a vision. My mother, my real mother, her voice, her eyes, the way she used to brush my hair when I couldn't move from the hospital bed. My sister, my real one, hugging my favorite blanket, screaming at nurses, telling them she'd donate her own organs if it meant saving me. Anna, my best friend from childhood, standing outside my isolation ward with a cake she wasn't allowed to give me, her breath fogging the window as she whispered, "Happy birthday anyway." They were here, their faces rippled across my vision, my system glitched, my heartbeat spiked. New conquest targets, original world, affection levels. Anna, 95%, mother, 99%, sister, 92%. My mouth went dry. "Are they real?" I asked, shaking. "Affirmative. Do you wish to return?" My lips parted. "Ted." I didn't answer right away. I stood slowly, the rooftop fading, the pain temporarily paused. In front of me shimmered a door. Behind it, home. Behind me, this cursed world. The 4 girls who betrayed me. The man who ruined me, the body I never asked for. The choices that never belonged to me. I looked over my shoulder one last time. No one was chasing me, no one was holding me back. I stepped forward. I stood before the glowing door to the original world, heart thudding, hand hovering over the handle. Behind it, peace waited. My mother, my sister, Anna, my body would be healed, my suffering erased. I could be Joseph again, not the mission, not the host, not the target, just a person, but I didn't open it, not yet. The system buzzed at the edge of my mind. Do you wish to return? Affection thresholds reached. Reward ready for redemption. No, I whispered. Not until the truth is all out. Not until they know everything. Remaining system points, 3,400. Each truth file, 500 points. Confirm full redemption? Confirm. One by one, the files unlocked. One by one, I sent them. The first was for Teresa, my sister in this world. The girl I once protected from an oncoming truck, the girl who once knelt beside my hospital bed for 6 days straight, begging me to live. She now stood in the hallway of the estate, scrolling through the footage I'd just delivered. In the video, Richard stood in a lab with my research journal in hand, flipping through the pages. These formulas, he laughed, could buy a company overnight. All I had to do was burn his lab down, then leak that he sabotaged it himself. Teresa's voice echoed faintly from the recording. He'd never do that, she said. Oh, but he will now, Richard replied smoothly. After the media spins it, you just have to act surprised. And she had. She had cried on camera, accused me in front of strangers, said I betrayed her trust. Her knees gave out as she watched it again, alone this time. The journal I once let her read, our shared dream, now a burning image on the screen. The second video was for Joanne. She had locked herself in her bridal suite, makeup still fresh from the ceremony, tears streaking it now. The file began with static. Then, her sister Freya, seated in the back seat of a car. I've already disabled the brake sensors, Freya said on a call, her voice light, excited. By the time Joanne realizes it, it'll be too late. On the other end, Richard's voice. You sure it won't kill her? Freya scoffed. Maybe it should. Either way, she'll be useless. I'll take her place in the inheritance line. And if anyone finds out? We'll blame Joseph. The car's under his name, remember? Easy. Joanne screamed. The video continued, showing Freya pushing the crash site into motion. Showing Richard deleting messages, showing both of them whispering at her hospital bedside, telling her I had been the one driving. She dropped the tablet, fell to the floor, and screamed again. Then the third file went to Maria. She had just stepped onto a red carpet, paparazzi flashes surrounding her. The second she opened the link, she froze. On screen, Richard leaned against a balcony rail, speaking into a phone. She's already clinging, he said. So predictable. Once I get access to her family's overseas holdings, I'll disappear. A woman's voice, unseen, laughed. And after? I'll tell the public she cheated. Use the old revenge lover storyline. Easy, she'll be too heartbroken to fight. He turned to the camera with a smirk. Joseph's already ruined anyway, let them all burn together. The clip ended. Maria staggered back, heels slipping, hand over her mouth. The cameras around her caught everything, the shock, the realization, the betrayal blooming across her face. And still, I said nothing. I watched from the rooftop of the estate, watched their worlds collapse under the weight of their own choices, the lies they had once swallowed now turning bitter in their throats. They came one by one. Teresa was first. She didn't speak, she just knelt on the pavement in the courtyard, sleeves soaked with tears and blood. She pressed a blade to her palm and cut, deep, deliberate, and whispered, "This pain, it's not even close to what I gave you. I was your sister, I knew you, I believed him anyway." Maria was next. She arrived still in her evening gown, makeup smeared. Her security team tried to follow, but she pushed them away and collapsed to her knees beside Teresa. "They'll never trust me again. They'll think I was weak. They'll say I was stupid. And they're right. I let him sell me like a product." Her voice broke. "I let him turn me into you." Then came Joanne, still in her wedding dress. Her heels snapped as she ran through the halls, falling twice, but she didn't stop. She burst into the courtyard, eyes wild, veil dragging behind her like a ghost. "You promised me," she screamed. Her voice cracked the air like lightning. "You said you'd never leave without my permission. I forbade you to die." I stood above them, eyes dim, limbs trembling as the system's countdown reached single digits. System erasure imminent, affection. Status irrelevant, host identity dissolving. They looked up at me as the edges of my vision faded. 3 women, 3 faces that once loved me, then hated me, now shattered by what they'd allowed. I didn't feel joy, I didn't feel revenge. I just felt tired. So I looked them in the eyes and said quietly, "This is what you all protected." They begged then, each in their own way. Joanne clawed at the ground, screaming for me to stay. "Please, don't disappear. I'll trade my legs, my voice, my life. Just don't go again." Maria dropped her care-wagged mirror on the ground and buried her face in my old hoodie she found by the steps. Teresa reached toward me, whispering broken apologies between sobs, blood dripping from her hand. But it was too late. The system's final message echoed in my mind. Erasure countdown. 3, 2, 1. And just before the darkness took me, I whispered one last thing. "In the next world, don't believe lies so easily." And then I vanished. When my eyes opened again, I expected the smell of seawater, blood, burnt nerves. I expected the cold hum of the system's voice counting down my last breath. Instead, I smelled vanilla. Sunlight poured through linen curtains. A warm breeze stirred the edges of a blanket that wasn't soaked in pain. The ceiling wasn't marble or gold, it was soft white, with little star stickers still glowing faintly from childhood. And the voice that called my name wasn't robotic. It was Mom. "Joseph," she whispered, hand trembling against my cheek. Is it really you?" Before I could answer, she wrapped her arms around me and sobbed into my shoulder, the kind of sob that comes from waiting far too long. My real sister burst in next, dropping a bowl of porridge as she screamed my name and nearly tackled both of us in her rush to reach me. She didn't say anything. She just hugged my arm tightly, like it was the only lifeline in the world. Then came Anna. She didn't cry, didn't shout. She just stood in the doorway with a giant cake, balanced awkwardly in her arms, her glasses fogged from the heat. "I told you I'd bring it, no matter what," she muttered, her voice shaking. "It's your favorite. I even added the frosting this time." The moment she placed it on the table, the candles lit on their own, and the system's voice echoed for the final time. "Mission complete, all affection points maxed, host fully restored, system will now shut down, goodbye, Joseph." I smiled, not out of triumph, not out of vengeance, just peace. We sat down at the old kitchen table, Mom, my sister, Anna, and me. We passed soup, joked about the bad hospital food, talked about everything and nothing. They listened to me without suspicion, without fear, without filters. They believed me before I spoke. When it was time, Anna lit the candles again and I made a wish. I didn't wish for revenge. I wished for quiet. But before the last flicker of system energy faded, it offered one last gift. "Would you like to view the outcomes of targets 1-4 from World A-YN?" I didn't move. But the screen flickered open anyway. First came Joanne. Her legs had relapsed just 3 months after I vanished. Every hospital turned her away. She had no money, no power. Richard's public betrayal destroyed her reputation. With Freya now controlling the Liu estate, Joanne was reduced to a discarded name in a newspaper headline. She sold her jewelry to eat. Then her house, then her voice, appearing on twisted live streams begging strangers to help her bring someone back. No one believed her. Next, Teresa. When Richard vanished, and I didn't return, her father's wrath returned tenfold. There was no one left to protect her, no voice to challenge his, no arms to hide in. Each night blurred into the next. She stopped speaking, stopped smiling, just stared at the broken photograph on her desk, the one we took together, years ago. Then Maria. Her parents, furious at the collapse of her brand, auctioned her to foreign CEOs behind closed doors. She became a token, a bargaining chip, exchanged for investment money like some luxury collectible. In every hotel she was sold to, she stared at her reflection and whispered my name over and over, as if it could shield her like it once had. And finally, Richard. They found him, all of them, Joanne in her wheelchair, Maria with blackened eyes, Teresa with blood still fresh on her sleeves. They dragged him to a basement, chained him to the wall, and for the first time, he was the one screaming. They replayed every moment of pain they ever inflicted on me, the burns, the beatings, the humiliation. They carved the word liar into his chest, just like trash was once carved into mine. But no matter how long it lasted, no matter how loudly he begged, I never came back. In the final scene, the four of them knelt together in silence. It was snowing. Each of them held something from the life we once shared. Joanne clutched the broken engagement ring. Maria pressed her face to the old hoodie I once left in her car. Teresa held the torn research notebook we wrote together. And Anna, from that world, if she ever existed there, did not come. They wept in unison. "I was your sister," Teresa whispered through trembling lips. "How? Did I forget?" Joanne lifted her head, tears freezing to her cheeks. "You promised me forever, and I believed the one who destroyed you." Maria just cried. And Richard, gagged and broken, screamed into the dark. But I never turned back. I closed the screen, blew out my birthday candles, and smiled.